There are moments in every legend's story when the crown slips, when perfection cracks, when the world's brightest star is left alone in the dark. Stay in the spotlight. Hit like and subscribe for more untold celebrity stories. For Beyoncé, that moment came when her empire trembled under the weight of betrayal, exhaustion, and silence. But what followed wasn't defeat, it was rebirth. This is the untold story of how Beyoncé lost it all and returned more powerful than ever. The weight of perfection. By 2013, Beyoncé wasn't just a name, she was a symbol, a brand, a movement, a phenomenon. She had conquered the charts, headlined the Super Bowl, married one of the world's most powerful men, and become a global icon of female strength. To the public, her life looked golden. But behind the flawless smile and the perfect performances was a woman carrying the crushing weight of expectation. Every interview, every rehearsal, every breath had to be flawless. She wasn't allowed to be tired. She wasn't allowed to stumble. And slowly, the pressure began to steal her peace. At night, when the lights went out and the crowd's screams faded, she'd lie awake staring at the ceiling. "What am I doing all this for?" she whispered once to herself. The echo in the quiet room was her only answer. Beyoncé's drive for perfection was legendary. She would stay in the studio for 16 hours straight, repeating one line, one note, until it felt right. "Again," she'd say to the engineer, her voice calm but unyielding. "I can do it better." But even perfectionists can't control everything. Rumors had begun swirling. Whispers about her marriage, her management, her exhaustion. By 2014, after years of silence and speculation, the world saw something it never expected: the elevator footage. A brief, grainy clip. Her sister Solange, her husband Jay-Z, and Beyoncé standing between them, calm, composed, unflinching. It became the most talked about silence in modern pop culture. What had happened? Why wasn't she reacting? Was this the fall of music's royal couple? The internet roared with theories. But Beyoncé said nothing. She never does. Behind the scenes, though, the pain was real. The trust between her and Jay-Z had cracked. The woman who built her empire on loyalty, family, and love suddenly found herself questioning everything. For weeks, she disappeared from public view. Her team called it a break. The truth was deeper. She was broken, not publicly, not visibly, but quietly, in the spaces no one sees. The years leading to Lemonade were filled with creative silence. No albums, no interviews, just reflection. Beyoncé spent time with her daughter, Blue Ivy, traveling quietly, writing privately, thinking deeply. She attended therapy. She journaled obsessively, pages filled with questions about identity, love, betrayal, and self-worth. Her mother, Tina Knowles, visited her one evening. They sat in the backyard, the night air still. "You don't have to be strong all the time," Tina said softly. Beyoncé looked up, tears in her eyes. "But if I'm not strong, who am I?" Her mother smiled. "You're my baby. You're still human." That's who. That conversation stayed with her. It was the beginning of a new kind of strength, one that didn't come from control, but from surrender. In 2015, Beyoncé began creating again. But this time, the music was different. Darker, angrier, honest. She recorded long nights with producers she trusted, men and women who didn't just make hits but understood emotion. In dimly lit studios, she would sing through tears, her voice trembling with both rage and release. "Play it again," she'd say, standing barefoot in the booth. "This time, let me bleed." From those sessions came Lemonade. Each song wasn't just music, it was confession, a map of pain and power, the sound of a woman who'd been betrayed, doubted, and pushed beyond breaking, and who still stood. When her team first heard "Don't Hurt Yourself," they were stunned. "This isn't pop," one whispered. Beyoncé smiled faintly. "It's truth." April 23, 2016. Without warning, Beyoncé dropped Lemonade. The world stopped. The screen filled with fire, water, poetry, and pain. A woman in a yellow dress swung a bat down a suburban street, smashing windows, laughing through tears. It was art, raw, furious, divine. Every lyric, every visual, every beat carried the story of betrayal and forgiveness, rage and redemption. She wasn't hiding anymore. She was speaking in the only language she knew, creation. Critics called it a masterpiece. Fans called it scripture. And suddenly, what had been private heartbreak became collective healing. Women, from New York to Lagos, found their voices in hers. They cried with her, healed with her, sang with her. And Beyoncé, standing center stage in the storm, found her own strength again. Months later, Jay-Z would release 444, his own response, an open apology, an admission of guilt, and a love letter in song form. "I apologize, our love was one for the ages and I contained us," he rapped. "And if my children knew, I don't even know what I would do." The couple began rebuilding, privately and deliberately. They attended therapy together, spent more time at home, and focused on family. But something fundamental had shifted. Beyoncé was no longer the woman who stood quietly beside the throne. She was the queen who ruled it. Her strength wasn't in perfection anymore. It was in vulnerability. In 2017, Beyoncé gave birth to twins, Rumi and Sir. It was a difficult pregnancy. She developed preeclampsia, and the birth required an emergency C-section. She later revealed that she weighed nearly 218 pounds during the pregnancy and struggled with recovery. "I had to rebuild my body from cut muscles," she said. "But I had to rebuild my soul too." Her journey through motherhood became another layer of healing, a quiet reclamation of power through patience, love, and gratitude. In her private journals, she wrote, "I used to think strength meant not breaking. Now I know it means breaking and rebuilding yourself in the light." By 2018, the world was ready for Beyoncé again, but this time, she wasn't the same artist. She was freer, bolder, unfiltered. Her Coachella performance, later immortalized as Homecoming, became her declaration of rebirth. Every drumbeat, every formation, every dance move was precision mixed with pride. She celebrated Black culture, womanhood, and excellence without apology. During rehearsals, she told her team, "I want people to feel what I feel when I'm on stage, unstoppable." And when she finally stepped into the light at Coachella, the crowd trembled. She wasn't performing anymore. She was testifying. The rebirth of a queen. When the lights exploded across the Coachella stage in 2018, it wasn't just a performance, it was resurrection. Beyoncé emerged from the darkness in a glimmering Egyptian gold cape, flanked by dancers in precise formation, a live marching band roaring behind her. The beat dropped, the crowd erupted, and history was written in real time. She didn't just headline Coachella, she became the first Black woman to ever do so. But this wasn't about breaking records. It was about reclaiming her identity, her pride, and her narrative. She dedicated the performance to HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities, blending majorette culture, step routines, gospel, and hip-hop into one monumental tribute to Black excellence. Each move, each note, carried purpose. It wasn't entertainment, it was education, revelation, revolution. Her dancers, mostly young Black performers, felt it too. Many later said it changed their lives. "It wasn't just a job," one said. "It was a mission." Backstage, just before walking out, Beyoncé had whispered to her team, "This is bigger than me. This is for every Black woman who's been told she's too much, too loud, too proud." When she finally took her final bow that night, tears streamed down her face. The crowd roared. History had been reclaimed, and Beyoncé had become more than a performer. She was now a cultural architect. After Homecoming, Beyoncé's focus shifted from proving herself to owning everything she created. She had already founded Parkwood Entertainment, a full-scale company that handled her music, film, and creative ventures. But now she expanded it into a powerhouse, producing films, launching artists, and controlling her entire artistic ecosystem. For Beyoncé, this was more than business. It was liberation. In a world where female artists were often treated as products, she was building a legacy on her own terms. She once said in a 2019 interview, "The biggest change in my career wasn't fame or success, it was ownership. I own my masters. I own my art. That's freedom. And freedom became her North Star. She moved quietly but strategically, producing Black is King, a visual masterpiece that celebrated African heritage and identity. It wasn't about topping charts, it was about representation. The visuals were lush, golden deserts, ancestral costumes, dancers from across the continent, every frame an ode to her roots. Her narration echoed through the film. You can't wear a crown with your head down. It wasn't just a metaphor, it was a generational message. But even as the empire grew, Beyoncé's focus began to turn inward. After years of performance, production, and power moves, she craved peace. The woman who once thrived in the spotlight started finding joy in quiet, meditation, motherhood, and moments away from cameras. She spoke about it during Homecoming. I learned to stop living for the applause and start living for my joy. Her days became simpler, mornings with her children, evenings in her garden, long walks by the ocean. She practiced gratitude daily, writing affirmations in a leather-bound notebook. Her friends said she became more spiritual, more grounded, more at peace than ever before. When asked what success meant now, she smiled. Balance. I used to chase perfection. Now I chase peace. While the world had been obsessed with the drama of Lemonade and 444, Beyoncé and Jay-Z had been doing the quiet, hard work of rebuilding. Therapy sessions. Honest conversations. Vulnerability instead of ego. Their 2018 On the Run 2 tour became a living testament to that healing. Every night, they performed beneath massive screens displaying their children's faces, Blue Ivy, Rumi, Answer, as if to say, we survived this together. During one performance, as they held hands before thousands, Beyoncé turned to Jay and smiled, small, sincere, and full of forgiveness. It wasn't for the cameras. It was for them. In interviews later, Jay-Z admitted, without her strength, I wouldn't be the man I am. She taught me to love deeper, to be accountable, to evolve. It was no longer the story of betrayal. It was a story of redemption. By the early 2020s, Beyoncé's influence had grown beyond music. She was a philanthropist, fashion innovator, and activist, championing racial justice, women's rights, and humanitarian causes. When the pandemic struck, she donated millions to small businesses and mental health support for struggling families. She funded scholarships through her Baygood Foundation, focusing on Black college students and creative entrepreneurs. But even in her philanthropy, Beyoncé kept her signature discretion. She never sought attention for her generosity, it was always about the work. As one team member said, Beyoncé doesn't talk about changing the world. She quietly does it. In 2022, she returned to music with Renaissance, an album inspired by house, dance, and queer club culture, a joyous celebration of freedom and self-expression. It wasn't an album born from pain this time, it was born from liberation. She described it as a safe place, a dream world where no one is judged. And that's exactly what it felt like. Light after darkness, joy after healing. Looking back, the woman who once felt she'd lost it all had, in truth, gained everything. She had found herself. The trials, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the exhaustion, had stripped away the illusion of perfection and replaced it with something real. Power through authenticity. Her voice, once focused on control, now carried warmth and wisdom. Her art, once crafted for charts, now spoke to souls. And through it all, Beyoncé remained fiercely private, guarding her family, her peace, her energy. Because she had learned the hard way that not everything needed to be seen to be real. During one of her rare reflective moments, she said in an interview, "You can lose everything, fame, money, love, control, and still find yourself in the ashes. That's when you know your power." Those words became a kind of manifesto not just for her fans, but for anyone who had ever been broken and dared to rise again. It's late one evening in Los Angeles. The house is quiet. Beyoncé sits on the balcony, wrapped in a soft robe, sipping tea. Below her, the city hums, lights glittering like stars on the ground. Her children are asleep. The world, for once, feels still. On the table beside her rests a notebook. She opens it, writes a single line, and smiles. "I didn't come to play. I came to slay," but I stayed to heal. She closes the book, looks up at the sky, and whispers a small prayer of gratitude. The queen has found her peace. The legend has found her truth. And the woman, the little girl from Houston who sang into a hairbrush, has found her way home. Beyoncé's story isn't about fame. It's about the freedom that comes from facing pain and using it as fuel for transformation. She taught millions that perfection isn't power, authenticity is. That silence can speak louder than scandal. That even queens can fall, but what matters most is how they rise. And in losing everything, Beyoncé discovered something far greater, herself. Thanks for watching.